good evening, everyone who is watching, everyone who is tuning in. We are nearing the end of our family forums. And tonight we're focusing on nutrition program, and specifically the agenda for this evening is in just 3 fingers. We're going to give the normal updates, talk about what's going on at school with COVID and COVID response and all that stuff. Number 2, I'm just going to give a little bit of a reminder about it's an odd calendar this week for the elementary. And next week for the elementary. And Holly, thank you for helping with whatever I might miss for calendar updates. Okay. But also there's an invitation for every student to attend the last day of school ceremony. We'll have details out about that by Thursday, but I just want to give a heads up to folks that 1st through 8th year students come to school as normal that day. And I'm giving the update right now. And 9th through 12th grade students are invited to attend in person that day, whether you've come to the SRC ever before or not, and line up to do our, I would say a typical lineup for our end of year ceremony, though we all will be wearing masks because we'll have such a crowd there. And, as we know, many elementary students are not eligible for vaccination. So that's one update. And then 3rd, and very soon, we will, Elena Sosowski is joining us here from the Student Experience Committee. Is that the official hat you have on tonight, Elena? Thank you, good. Elena is multi-talented, plays many roles at Great River School, has taught in the elementary and the adolescent program. And Holly, we're welcoming Elena here as our 3rd co-host. We haven't had many this year, so I just want to.
Hi, Elena, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be co-hosting with you.
Wonderful. So in just a couple minutes, what we will be doing is representing something the school board saw last week that gives a little bit of explanation of some shifts we're making in the nutrition program. And then if there are questions, we will field them and answer them. And then to remind everyone that there is a survey out right now, not only about the end of year and all of your experience at school, but a specific second survey just about the nutrition program. We sent all families that survey again today. So you can give feedback there if you haven't already. I just want to give a quick, before we go into that nutrition survey, just a quick review that COVID numbers are sustained in their steady decline in terms of in the 7-county metro area. I will say we are still living in a pandemic. So those numbers declining, I think could be contributed. A contribution to this could be that many people have been vaccinated. Contribution could be many people are mitigating properly with distancing and mask wearing and being outside. And I just want to caution everybody that we are not totally in the clear yet. And so through this summer, we're keeping our eye on if there are variants and or what our responsibilities are. I just want to advocate on behalf of the direction I've received from the Department of Health and the Department of Education that if you are eligible for a vaccine, the message from the Departments of Health and Education is that you should get one, and that will help keep you and your community safe. I guess I'll just say that's my understanding of all vaccines, is that if it's available to you, it helps keep the whole community safe. And as we move into next fall, Great River School is planning for an in-person program. And we are, of course, prepared to respond if something changes this summer. But all indications from local government agencies and experts are that in-person school will be happening because of a continued, I would say, dedication to both vaccination and then making sure you get tested often. And if you have symptoms, to stay home proactively and really be careful before we're around each other. So with that said, I believe next week will be our last regular family forum. And I don't have a specific focus there, except that I think we'll have a little preview of what communications will be coming out in the summer. Holly, is there anything important that I might have missed about the calendar updates?
Oh, Sam, could you talk a little more about the elementary this week?
Yes, I could. And I've had, I just have to thank both Elena and Holly for volunteering to share information. My computer, this is all I'm able to see. Can you see there?
Did you?
Yeah, basically it's blank. It's blank. So I'm not able to pull up my usual, I'm gonna pull from memory, but I'll need your help in case something is not accurate.
Okay.
In any case, here's my understanding, and I'll make sure that you all can share screen too. So just thank you for your patience. I know that this week, oh, there we go, good. I know that this week, there's a little bit of a special thing happening. So today and tomorrow are conferences in the elementary program, and specifically, oh, there we go. Specifically, conferences are a time to show work, share work, and it's out of the ordinary to have those happen at the end of the year, but important enough, especially for elementary students, as I was with a couple elementary students in their conference today, and to see work change from 1 year to year 2 to year 3 is really remarkable. So we're doing conferences, and then I know this week, Thursday and Friday are going to be carnival days for lower elementary classrooms. Please check your email. Some lower L rooms are on Thursday, some are on Friday. Holly, do you have the reminders right there in front of you?
Unfortunately,
I couldn't tell if that was notes or Charles Dickens.
What about Charlie?
I couldn't tell if your little book, if the book there was a book of notes or if it was like a Charles Dickens and you were going to read.
Oh,
It looked like notes. It looks like notes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Oh, good. Good.
But let me look that up. I don't have the
Okay.
which classrooms go which day.
Oh, cool. Okay, great. And then I know next week, Monday and Tuesday, are carnival days for the upper elementary, which if you're wondering, what does that mean, carnival days? It means going to the park, playing many, many games together. The games are fun, and I believe that there's some kind of carnival-esque aspect to tickets and economy study, the study of economy. As a Montessori school, the tickets aren't the incentive, but instead they are social capital that we're trading and probably moving around. And of course, you know, nobody loses at the carnival is the theme. Right. It's okay to lose things. It's okay to compete, but I believe the carnival is sort of a everybody wins festival. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And then Friday the 11th, just as a reminder, is the last day of school ceremony. So those are the heads up.
What time is school over that day?
Thank you, Holly. School's over that day. Buses will be dismissed at 11:45 a.m.
11:45.
Yeah, and so if you're on a bus, we'll send you specific times. And if you're not, if you're on site, we want you to be picked up, or plan to arrive to be picked up, or to go yourself home at 11:45.
Go yourself home.
Go yourself home.
Go yourself home.
Yeah, it's a rough translation, sort of a reflexive verb, Spanish language influence. In any case, without further ado, Elena, would you do us the honor of sharing your screen? I believe that there is a presentation. And with a drum roll, my preface to this will be, oh, it's such a beautiful presentation too. Thank you for sharing this with us, Elena. The Great River School Nutrition Program was really worked on and analyzed by many constituents. Specifically, the Student Experience Committee of the school board started looking at some proposals and some things we've learned over the last couple of years that I brought and the folks who have been running the nutrition program brought to the school board in January and February of this year. And so what we're going to talk about is some specifics that are proposed to adjust the focus of the program next year. And Elena, I don't know if you have anything to say about that image, ground in gratitude. I appreciate, as a gardener, several of those things grow in the ground, like the radish. But what I'm looking forward to is more students experiencing education in the kitchen, and what we want to explain tonight is what these changes might mean for the program internally, and then assure families what will change and what might not change that much from your family side experience. So with gratitude filled, thanks, Elena. Can we go to the next slide? And And so what we're looking at the food program is an investment of the school board. And so specifically that the time and energy and materials that the school supports in terms of what is produced in the kitchen over the last couple years since the school really started producing its own food in fall 2018, has been running a full service food program since early 2019. We have looked at the investment as a business, trying to run that food program primarily as a business. And the idea was that when that business got on its feet, specifically that at that point, we would start integrating educational opportunities to have students participate in the working business. So we're adjusting that, and what we're looking for is to have our quality nutrition program continue to produce food, and specifically though that we're going to shift and look at this as an investment as an education program that we think aligns a little more clearly with our Great River School mission and vision. Ping. Thanks, Elena. And so the goal here is that if we had to compare a focus between, say, food production and education, but we're going to start with a focus of education. So we're going to have smaller participation rates likely than we have in the past, because we're going to focus on offering high quality food, but likely less daily variety, less cafe a la carte offerings, and really less of a wide variety, because that wide variety required a lot of staffing and then a lot more capacity. And what we're going to do is shift so that we're still going to produce really high quality foods. Our free and reduced lunch families are going to have the opportunity to give a lot of feedback on exactly what will best serve their students. Fewer food choices doesn't mean lower quality. It means that we're going to have to really focus, I think, on listening on what is working successfully for the folks who are participating in the food program. And then what that will allow us to do is have more student involvement in making and serving food and nutrition, using the kitchen facility for an educational experience, and really seeing anything we're investing financially in the program as part of the education program. Thanks, Elena. Next slide. And so, Elena, please just jump right in if you want to explain at all your experience or telling of this roadmap, because
Sure.
I noticed, yeah, our little purple car is there on the right side, but how did we get here?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. So as Sam mentioned, in January, the kind of board had started to think about evaluating the current nutrition program and then like what we could do moving forward. And so as part of the student experience committee, which really focuses on the student experience at Great River, I helped assemble a team of stakeholders that included folks on the board. It included members of the student experience committee who are not on the board. It included current staff of the nutrition program, and then also program managers. So we tried to get a really wide variety of perspectives, helping us think through kind of where we are, how we got there, and where we're going. And so that led to us creating a rubric for assessing kind of how our current program was functioning, and then what options we had to make it more financially sustainable and educationally focused. And so then we, as the SEC, created some recommendations for the board. And one of those recommendations was that it was really, really important to us to hear from the community about the value of the food program and the education opportunities that community members are excited about. And as Sam said, especially for the people that have been consistently using the food program, like what you really want and need going forward. So that was something that particularly the folks working in the nutrition department right now feel is really, really important to get feedback on. And we agree from the SEC standpoint that we want to know what has mattered to you about the GRS nutrition program so far, and what are you excited about in the future? And that's going to inform our work going forward. So that's why our little car is right here.
Awesome. Thanks, Elena.
And this is kind of what I talked about already.
Oh, yeah. And so I'll put a few specifics on this, but some of the recommendations included maintain our current program during this school year, which we are doing and will do. And then in next school year, starting the fall of 21 and through the spring of 22, to identify and pilot some specific educational opportunities. And so that's where our education program in the elementary, and then also in our 7th and 8th grade program specifically, have looked at ways to integrate, to make sure that curriculum is integrated, to integrate curriculum directly into students' schedules, likely in the afternoons for the elementary, so that one of the 3 workshops that an elementary student will cycle through, I believe 4 times through their year, will be a wellness curriculum that has to do with both nutrition and then other wider aspects of wellness. But that the nutrition program then would be able to be a platform for students to learn and prepare. And then as they age up through the school, the 7th and 8th year program next year will have a class that really connects the garden with the kitchen facility and the preparation and connection of the garden and food to the preparation of food. And then also integrates the many wonderful and successful community-based programs and social and food justice programs around the Twin Cities. So looking at those as pilot programs does not mean that we're going to see if they work and if we want to do them. It's more that we want to see exactly what's the best way to integrate and implement that kind of curriculum. And so we'll re-examine then next year for the following year's budget and consider a full-time educator. Next year, there will be a part-time dedicated educator in the afternoon working with that 7th and 8th grade program, and then another full-time educator working with the elementary program, and then overlapping with some after-school opportunities. And so what we do see are likely more offerings for after-school classes that use the kitchen facility again, likely then learning from that what works and what our community wants. And then what we see here is the town hall meeting survey. So we're in stage 1 of that right now. It's our first town hall tonight, and we have a survey that's been sent to families a couple times. We would like to see a response to that survey from really everybody. And both surveys that are out right now, we want to see them both completed by the 7th by as many people as possible. Elena, did I miss anything?
I think the one thing to add is that one thing we did hear loud and clear from the folks that we talked to is that people really love the food at GRS, and it's really, really important to our community to maintain an in-house nutrition program. So that was something that was like a really clear, that came out really clear from all of the people that we talked to already.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, awesome.
That was important to maintain.
Thank you. Thanks for driving the slideshow also. And so we're going to get a little bit detailed. I don't want anyone to glaze over well, if this is a time to go get a beverage or a new glass of water because you're not so interested in specifics and numbers, now's your cue. We're back in 20 seconds. But it will identify that some of the specifics for next year, and when we say 22 there, we mean the school year of 21-22. The budget proposal that we have really takes the investment we're making in the nutrition program and make sure that there is still staff to make from scratch quality food, and that quality food is I think part of the relationship that those staff at the school have with the people who are participating, with a focus, I would say, not only on the people who are participating, but then also this year's staff have identified and seen I think a real relationship between students and families who are qualified for free and reduced lunch and responding to their needs specifically. So I think that is something I want to emphasize. Also, though, that as that lunch program really engages the folks who are participating, it allows for a part-time opportunity and a full-time opportunity for 2 educators to really be collaborating and working in the kitchen in that elementary and junior high program. And that 3-person team that's listed at the bottom is a real shift from the 3+ person team that's been making food and really using Heron to Go as a way to try to financially sustain that program. So Heron to Go isn't leaving, but it's shifting a focus. We have been looking at Heron to Go as a model to make high quality food, and then by freezing it, having families pick it up at a set time, feeding our community, but also trying to generate basically a restaurant style revenue source. And then what we're doing now is shifting to funding the preparation of high quality lunches every day, funding educators, and then using Heron to Go as a intermittent business model that our students can help prepare the food, can learn how that business model works, can learn how high quality food production works. And we're not under such duress and pressure to be producing volumes of food out of that kitchen. Thanks, Lena. Next. And so I'll identify that we are just about to post roles, these new roles in the kitchen, which include a kitchen manager who's a lead chef, a year-round 12-month-a-year position, a kitchen staff who's a full-time 9-month position working during the school year, and then that nutrition and wellness educator. And so this is important when we're talking about school budgets and the school board's looking at how we're investing our money. And then next slide.
So this is really where we'd like to hear from you, and the kind of focus of our feedback is really what you value about the GRS food program right now. So what you're finding successful, what's working for you, what you think is most important for us to keep in mind next year. And I kind of mean us in the broad sense of like, I have my SEC board member hat on, and you've elected me, so I'm responsive to you. And then what questions, concerns, or comments do you have at this time?
Yeah, I think the idea here is that we're starting, I think with this survey, an iteration where we're likely, I think, going to be asking questions probably mid-year next year, and then probably again toward the end of the year, to see what's worked well and what we can still improve upon. I will say that since the fall of 2018, the real focus has been to basically ask for participation and try to produce the best quality food for, what I think has become a unique, truly likely the only of its kind of program at a public school in the Twin Cities, cooking meals from scratch every day, and not just a meal, but a meal, sandwiches, a salad bar, right? So all of the things that we've been doing to really garner the kind of participation that hopefully was up near 70 or 80%. And what we've seen is that routinely we have somewhere between 20 and 35% of our families ready to engage regularly, including families who qualify for introduced lunch. And so all those commitments to provide quality food stay. But as we make this shift, what will likely shift for you as a family is that, like we've said, there may be fewer choices per day about what is served for lunch. So probably something more like what this year has looked like for on-site students who are getting school lunch. And then if you are a weekly, say, subscriber to Heron to Go, that likely will reduce in availability. And what will change then is that students, so all of your students in 1st through 8th year classes, and then likely 9th through 12th grade students, if they're interested in, say, an internship or a CAS where they're helping out with real kitchen operation, we'll have opportunities to engage more with the kitchen. And so as we go through next year to learn about that, we want to know right now, what do you currently value? What's important to keep in mind? And then we'll likely ask these same questions mid-year, and we're looking for really everyone who's participated or wants to participate in the food program. All right. I think, is that our last slide, Lena? Oh, great. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm trying to see, for those of you who are here, thank you so much for being here live. For those of you who are listening in, if you have questions, please send them to office@greatriverschool.org. And what we'll do now, though, is for anyone who's tuned in live, we'll answer any questions about the nutrition program and its changes for next year. We might also answer any questions about anything else. Oh, good point from one of the current live attendees. If we're an offsite family, we're not sure what's being served for lunch right now. I'll report that right now, 2 days a week, there's a hot option, and 5 days a week, there's a sandwich wrap option for lunch. Those are then packaged up individually and served individually to students. So we're not running a food bar. I will say it's generally not told yet what best practices are for next year and next year's operations in terms of whether or not we should be serving students at a food bar and having them all sit in the same location. However, as we do live through this pandemic, What I do know, great. And what I do know is that the menu next year probably won't drastically change. Though if anyone in the current audience has expertise they'd like to share, feel free to speak up, because I know we do have some folks here who are some of the wonderful people right now who make the food each day. Snap, snaps, snap, snap, snaps. And let's see, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. We will maybe give another minute or two for folks who are here. If you want to put a question down in the Q&A, feel free to do so. I'll fill this little space by saying the survey that's out right now about the nutrition program is a great place to give feedback. Also, the end of year survey that's out right now is a really important place for us to take not only how we're doing right now into account, but also we would like to see what your experience has been and what you're looking forward to next year. It's been a really a year that will never be repeated. And so there's some things we can assume, right? We know that folks would like to have us running the kind of Great River School that is unique and goes on key experiences and engages students with materials most days. And so we're looking to do that, but we'd like to hear what your experience has been. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. I see a few in the chat. Holly and Elena, anything else that you'd like to say before I answer a couple of these quick questions in the chat?
The food is really, really good.
Food's delicious. The sandwiches, actually, I'm coming down to campus early next week just to get sandwiches, just so I can have sandwiches for lunch.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
good.
I know,
Oh
it
my
is.
gosh,
It is quite good.
plentiful. That's all I want to say about it.
Oh,
Really
okay,
good.
okay, great. So I see a couple questions that I think are important and really fill in some spaces about the nutrition program, and one question about the end of year ceremony that I'm prepared to answer. Elena, anything else that you think we might have not emphasized or want to say again before I answer these last questions?
I guess this is my first time at one of these family forums, and so I'm not sure about like the listening in versus the live attendees, but
yeah,
I think it's important to also kind of recognize that this year has been transformative for all sorts of work, and especially in the food service industry, and it's in our nutrition staff has worked so incredibly hard, and has been so flexible throughout the year, responding to all of the changes that have gone on. And so I think that that's just really important to bear in mind, that we've all come through a global pandemic. We're still living in a global pandemic.
yeah.
And so we also have to be thinking about the financial constraints of that reality, that while it existed in our program before, has also been impacted by the pandemic.
Right, absolutely. And I would identify some of these shifts that we're making, and I'll speak to some specific questions in just a moment here, have been things that we have seen might be needed even before the pandemic, just in terms of knowing we're running a pretty intensive food operation that required 80% or more participation, which was an ambitious goal, but we thought might be realistic based on some of the survey data we gathered before the food production ever began. And something we've learned from the pandemic is that people really value the food, and possibly even value it more when they're able to bring it home and feed it to their family for dinner. Like that Heron to Go system that we now have was really born out of having a lot of food available and a pandemic. So where do we serve it now? So we've learned some things. I think there's an apt question here. With less staff, how do you see making all the lunches and the Heron to Go? So I just want to identify the volume of Heron to Go that's currently being produced and the volume of lunches currently being produced will have to adjust and change into next year under this model. So there will likely be a less volume of Heron to go available, and making it perhaps even a little bit more, I'm forgetting the word, but Holly or Elena, tell me if a little more desired, like the market availability will be less, in which
Scarcity is one of the foundations of capitalist economics.
well, there you go. It is. We are in a marketplace. I also know that the Heron to go preparation and availability. I've already heard early talk of making sure that the meal program where families are able to share a meal with another family not only remains available, but perhaps is more a focus of Heron to go than it currently is. So that is a good question. With less staff, how do you see making all the lunches in the Heron to go? I think I'm identifying that specifically. We'll have to focus on doing a smaller number of things just as well as we do now. And so to explain how we've been doing the food program up until the pandemic and through Heron to go, really the more variety we offered, we found the higher the participation rates were. But offering more variety is a lot of labor. And so to identify that we were doing that extra labor for more variety, we weren't focusing on one thing and then offering good education. And so we're trying to offer opportunities for students. So are students qualified to make this kind of menu? No. And so I think we need to shift a focus into education before students can have a meaningful part in preparing food. So again, 2 full-time positions preparing food. And if the demand is high, if it's higher than we've anticipated for producing food, we will then have the volume to demand more employees for food production. We're beginning with making sure our focus is on education and a focused food production rather than a broad market of food production. And then a good question, why are we not government funded? So pop quiz just to my co-hosts, NSLP. Does anyone know what that stands for?
School lunch program.
Holly, do you have a guess?
National salutations of lucky lunch programs for students.
It is the National School Lunch Program. It is funding that goes to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it flows to public schools. That funding flows basically as a per lunch amount for each student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch. So that's the preface. National sneaky lemur program is not, that was discontinued. And so it's no longer confused with the National School Lunch Program. The sneaky lemurs, they have a different society, and we'll talk about them next week, but they're cute, they're adorable. The National School Lunch Program, however, for a school of our size, and in particular with the number of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch and participate in the school lunch program, in order to report and participate in the National School Lunch Program, there is some detailed reporting and some detailed configuring of the menu that would change what we're able to serve right now for lunch. So for instance, we might serve what we find to be a nutritious lunch. And I don't know if you knew, but at Great River School right now, say we serve whole milk. We would not be able to qualify whole milk as a beverage in the National School Lunch Program, at least the last time I looked. And that you might have expertise if you're listening in. And if you want to be involved, something that I'm actually bringing to the Student Experience Committee this month is an assessment of whether or not to apply for next year for the school lunch program. So in general, up until this year, filling out all the paperwork, making sure the lunches qualify each day, and then making sure that the students are taking the lunches would cost more on the back end to do all that than we would be reimbursed. And so what we do is we commit to providing free lunches and reduced lunches to all students who qualify. That government funding is, it costs too much for us to benefit from it right now. However, if we had, say, the equivalent of about 480 students who qualified for free and reduced lunch participating in a lunch program every day, we would then start to actually break even on the reimbursements and the reporting. And so we know that, we've got that sort of tucked away. A wrinkle that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, now here, okay, there's your basic answer. And I'll just say for a minute, if you've been paying attention to the news, you know that the USDA declared really just about a month ago that all schools next year, all students in all public schools can qualify for free and reduced lunch, for free lunch, right? And so that's confusing because it only goes through the spring of 2022. And schools like ours have to think, well, what on earth does that mean? So we need to assess if that's really true, if the menu configuration would still meet our needs. And if we do apply for that program, we want to make sure we can meet all the compliance rules. And if we're accepted, we'll communicate that to you all right away. And that would drastically change how lunch is prepared. And probably it would change how many people participate in that lunch. So with that as a preface, we're not government funded because up until the fall of 2021, it has been really onerous to participate because you have to figure out which kids qualify and which don't for reimbursement. Now, we'll see what happens in 21, 22 and beyond, but we'll prepare a report before July 1st on the cost benefit and then be able to even apply in July if necessary. Holly?
I think you'll also find that the food that counts in the federal government program is not at all equal to the food that is served at Great River School as far as
Sure, currently.
Numminess.
Oh, sure. Well, I'll actually identify that there are talented, brilliant chefs working at lots of places. Some places where the food is yummy, some where they probably feel constricted. There are larger scale districts too. Minneapolis Public Schools, some innovative programs, St. Paul Public Schools, some innovative rural Minnesota programs where they are qualifying for National School Lunch Program, making delicious food, doing it responsibly. Like I don't want to knock the lunch program. I just will say we're not at a scale right now where it benefits us. For some of our lunches, we'd have to just add breadsticks to meet the carbohydrate quotient. And for some, we'd have to add, tomato sauce to meet the vegetable quotient. We'd have to change some things. And maybe that's worthwhile. But yes, my experience with school lunch 40 years ago was 35 was different than it is today. So there are some lunches, some school, I have no doubts that our brilliant food production folks, when and if we qualify for that program, which make it yummy, in your words.
I just meant like ketchup is not the same to me as a tomato.
Ketchup was a vegetable.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Well, and I'll just say my upper L student, not that I'm going to bring this to a close, reminded me today, vegetables don't exist. There are stems, there are leaves, there are fruits, there are roots, there are legumes. But vegetables aren't a thing. They're a thing in the market.
They're a social construct.
They're a social construct.
Quantum physics.
Yeah.
But there is a question in the Q&A.
Wonderful. Let's answer that question. I'm glad we stalled long enough. Will there be any food brought in from offsite? Or are we sticking completely with our own kitchen? So the initial answer, and interrupt me, Elena, if you feel prepared to answer this question. The initial answer is that we aim to make all of our food still on site, which is what currently happens. And we have backups, like any small food production organization should. We have backups in mind where there are some businesses that do cater food for schools. And if through illness or crisis or planned absence, we weren't able to keep up with the volume, an interim step would be to cater some of the food. However, the menu, the offerings, and the plan right now is that we're making all our food from scratch on site still. So that part of the quality part of the food production doesn't change at all for next year. Snap.
There's one other question in the chat.
Okay, great.
It is, could you talk again about the end of the year ceremony? What happens? What is it?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just give a moment of history since I've got 2 of these left, and then I'm out of here. Well, I'm not really leaving that fast. I'm making sure things are buttoned up, but the end of year ceremony has been done in a similar way, at least in my experience, since 2010. And so we're in the 11th time of the end of year ceremony. And here's what happens. We line up by age with the youngest students in the front, and then the older students in line behind them. So grade 1, 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have 12 lines on campus. We'll be in person. Because we'll be in person and because there's the potential for a crowd size bigger than 500, we will all be wearing masks, really following the school guidance rules that we committed to. And so regardless of what's happening in Minnesota this summer, we're going to be wearing masks. And what happens at the end of your ceremony is we take a moment to recognize all of those people younger than us who have given life to the school after us and filled those spaces and really kept the school going. And usually those who come after us are innovating in some way and taking what we've left and cultivating, new life into it. And so we recognize them and we thank them. And then literally, I'll just do it right now because I'm in a chair that allows it. Then we all turn around and then we face the people who are older than us. And the students, so, the first years in the front, they all turn around. Oh, I have a little Band-Aid. It's okay. They all turn around and they face the taller students who face the taller students. And so if you look at it from the side, you see this beautiful 12th grade sort of, it tends to do this, sometimes there's a tall 3rd grader and sort of a petite 6th grader, but it tends to look this way. And so everyone turns around and the 12th years are facing no other students because they're about to go off into the world where things are not yet defined. And we thank the older students for paving the way and setting up some traditions and for leaving behind the seeds of what we can plant and cultivate in the future. And so we'll do that. And usually in the past, we have put our hands on each other's shoulders and just out of, to use a phrase from this past year, an abundance of caution, we will put our hands up, but not necessarily be touching shoulders this year. And we will wish each other well. And then through really the advocacy and I think strong boundaries of both our wonderful nutrition team and our elementary program director and countless other voices, we will have ice cream. And so what will happen is we do all the ceremony parts, and then by classroom, the classroom each go to a quadrant of that space south of the school, and guides will hand a delicious treat to their students in place of the traditional handshake, say goodbye and have a good year, and then students will depart with that delicious thing in their hands, consume that thing before they get on a bus if they're getting on a bus, or take that thing to their family's car or on their walk home. And we end the year with a little bit of sweetness. Yes, there are problems in the politics and delivery of that ice cream. And through tradition, at least, we're just going to stick with it. So if you have feelings about the sugar we're ending the year with, please let me know. There will be ice cream sandwiches, I believe, produced by Kemp's, who is a neighbor. There will be Mr. Freezy's, I believe, produced in a magical, colorful tube, not locally at all, but frozen and vegan. And then there will be gluten-free Johnny Pops. So there should be very little waste. There should be a fair amount of sweetness consumed. And we don't know if it's going to be warm or not. We'll see. We've done this in 63-degree weather, and I recall 6 years ago it was 97 degrees and humid, and it was a different thing. So in any case, that's the end of your ceremony. All students, even the current distance learning students, are invited to attend. Please let us know if you're coming. We'll be sending an RSVP out if you're a distance learner in the Thursday bulletin this week. But 7th and 8th students and 1st through 6th students who are on site will come with their groups, and 9th through 12th students are invited to come early that morning at about 10:30 and line up in their lines by age. So, whew, I think I put too much detail in there, Holly, but thanks for asking.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So, Elena, anything you'd like to say in closing?
No?
Okay.
I guess if you do have more things you want to say in like an open dialogue forum, I know the webinar format maybe isn't the most conducive to dialogue, but I would ask if you want to email sec@greatriverschool.org. You can get in touch with us via email. And then if you are a family who qualifies for free and reduced lunch and you'd like to participate in a focus group, we really, really want to hear particularly from you. So please feel free to reach out and then we can get back to you about scheduling at a time that works for you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Elena. Thanks, Holly. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks,
Everybody.
Sam. See you for the last time next week at the
Okay,
family
sounds
forum.
good. Be well, everyone, and check your email for those surveys. And you can always find all the committees of the board on our public calendar. You can search committee and they all pop right up. And I think the SEC is meeting quite soon, just a week from tomorrow. All right.
You can even join. We're always looking for new members.
Absolutely. You can even just join for one meeting. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye now.
Bye.